Welcome to the Retiring Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we will discuss how to defer taxes on the sale of your property, earning passive real estate income, and everything you need to know to go from active investor to passive investor. Join us as we interview passive investment sponsors, explore the journey of other retiring real estate investors, and share our due diligence process we perform to select passive investments. Investment advisory services provided by Insight Investment Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is only intended for clients and interested investors residing in the states in which we are registered to provide investment advisory services or exempt from registration. Please contact us to determine if the firm provides investment advisory services in the state where you reside. All content on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Material presented is believed to be reliable sources, and no representations are made by our firm as to another party's informational accuracy or completeness. Insight Investment Advisors, LLC and its representatives do not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing herein should be construed as such. Always consult with your tax advisor or attorney regarding your specific circumstances. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Retiring Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Bruckman. I'm honored to be joined by Darcy Marler today. We are going to talk about all things development, which we've never talked about ever on the show. So I got questions, and Darcy, I bet you got answers.
I got answers. I love this. Nobody talks about this stuff. So I'm a prophet. I'm an evangelist. Let's go develop.
Oh, love it. Perfect. So start our listeners off here. How'd you end up in this space? Give them a little sense of your background. Simply introduce yourself to our listeners.
Perfect. No, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. Thanks for this. So yeah, I used to be an IT guy, and I don't know why so many computer guys end up in real estate, but that's a common theme. So 1996 to 2001, I lived full-time in South America, actually. My kids were born there. My wife's Venezuela, and I thought that was awesome. Anyway, I got burnt out. Always wanted to do real estate. And so I came back home and started into flips. And then a couple of those didn't sell. So now all of a sudden I'm a landlord. And then had an opportunity to get into some other stuff, BRRRRs, the fix and flip, condo conversions, lots of land development, new construction. I get bored easy, so I kind of just have pivoted into all kinds of different things.
No, that's amazing. Can we go through, South America. How long did you live in South America for?
5 years. So I was in Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil. I kind of joked that all my kids were born there, so I went down there and made my own souvenirs. So, but it was a fantastic time. I loved it. And yes, but when you go overseas, and you make good money, but boy, they work you hard. So I got stressed out. I didn't want to see a computer again. I got my first book on real estate given to me when I was 15. So like I'm 57. So that's over 40 years ago. So I said, no, that's what I want to do. So moved back home and, like I said, started getting into flips, and then we went from there.
What was that book?
That was a guy named, what the heck was his name? I think his name was Marco Haraldson. And it was, it was the 80s, right? So everything's no money down. And they're all from Utah. They're all Mormons. I don't know what the thing was about Robert Allen, remember he was Mormon. And so it's, I don't know what it was, but it was the thing. The late night infomercials, no money down. It's all just borrow 100% leverage, and away you go. So it was a wild time, but yeah. So I said, okay, that's what I want to do, and I moved back home and hooked up with a realtor that had actually done a bunch of investing as well. And so he got me into flips. I remember the first one. He brings me up to this house that's duplex, up down duplex, 1950s kind of style, and the dad owned it, but the 30-year-old son and the 30-year-old daughter. He lived upstairs. She lived downstairs. We go in, and it was just awful. It was just hoarders. It was awful. They were going to lose the house in a week, though. They hadn't paid the mortgage, but they were both alcoholics and really didn't even try, kind of thing. Yeah. So they didn't list it. All you have to do in that situation is list it, and then the bank will ease off. But they didn't. So they were letting realtors in, but nobody could kind of see past the grime to the actual the bones. So I went through it, and we get out to the car, and my realtor goes, well, that's kind of normal for flips. Are you into it? And that was his way of kind of nicely saying, are you going to waste my time? And we're going to see 100 places you're not going to buy, or are you going to, evaporate off the pot? So I said, no, let's do it. And that was my first venture.
And where is home, and where were you located in that first group?
Actually, in Canada, actually, Calgary, Canada. But I've done stuff all over. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I get bored easy. So
And how the first one work itself out?
I made 25 grand.
Oh,
So everything was new, right? Like, so I assumed you buy a house in your personal life, you assume that, okay, I'm selling my house, I'm going to clean it up. I go to the new house, it's empty and all clean. You buy a hoarder's house, you're going to inherit the stuff. So just a little tip for your
yeah.
viewers: if you end up buying that, make sure you put 3 or 4 grand into trust, so that you can pay for the garbage cleanup after. Didn't know that. I walk in, they still live there. Oh my God, what am I going to do? This is my first time freaking out. So I called the
Yeah.
lawyer. Well, not much we can do. It's Saturday. Well, anyway, so
Mm.
my realtor was a little bit not necessarily he worked in the gray area, so he said screw that. He went and just kicked him out, changed the locks. Okay, now what do I do? Well, now we went down to a place called the Cash Corner, where outside of Home Depot, you get the kind of the day workers and stuff. So we went back, and now this is all new to me. I'm hiring guys right off the street. Oh my God, this is a thing. And we went back, and they just start throwing all the stuff out on the lawn.
Mhm.
And so it was up to them to kind of pick and through what they wanted. But I noticed the neighbors kind of going by the alleyway back and forth, seeing if there's anything to kind of collect. So I threw a bunch of it away, but the pile did get smaller and smaller over the course of the week, just naturally. So anyway, just a learning curve, just straight up. It was a thing.
Bunch of things you don't expect, but
Yeah,
you
what
just
the
find a way to do it, right? You just kind of tackle it.
yeah.
All right, so how long were you doing some of the flips in that nature? So first one, I mean, I'd consider that pretty successful out the gate. Hey, we made money, we figured it out, great. How did you start? Did you continue to start doing things in that same nature?
Well,
Then when
my
did you get
goal
bored?
was, so my goal was I wanted an assembly line, right? I wanted to
Yeah.
buy 2 new houses every month,
Mhm.
and kind of, so this month, the 2 I bought last month, I take possession, I start renovation, you're kind of moving them down. So after 4 or 5 months, we'd be in a position where they've been listed and sold. So the idea was 10 houses at any given time as we move through the assembly line. It didn't quite work like that. What happened was, in order to make that happen, I said yes to stuff I shouldn't have said yes to. The numbers weren't there. But geez, I got to keep the trades busy. I don't want to lose my guys and all that. That's the problem with flips, is there's a lot of pressure to find the next one. You're kind of always in hunting mode.
Mhm.
And so I make 25 grand on that one. I made 5 grand on the next one. I lost 10 grand on the next one. So it was up and down.
Mhm.
And again, I get bored easy. So about the time I figured all this out, what my costs were and all this stuff, okay, I got that figured out. Instead of doubling down on, okay, going really hard into flips, this is my thing now, I get it. No, let's go try something else. And I've done very well over the years, but focus is a thing that I would bring back to. You should probably focus on one strategy and go hard on it. Is something I learned over the years.
But it sounds like though that you were still drifting to sort of find that thing you wanted to focus on, because it sounds like development is the thing maybe you've landed on. You're going to say, hey, this is where I'd rather focus, as opposed to the fix and flips. And then maybe for our listeners, like, give them some sense of why. Like, why would you want to focus more on the development than the fix and flips? What are some of the advantages there?
And that actually speaks to more you. Like, who are you, right? And so by that I mean, like I said, I've been watching the real estate education world for 40 years now. The books and the podcasts and the late night infomercials, as I said. We kind of tend to bring people in, and whatever your first weekend conference is, that's kind of your strategy, whether it's multifamily or whether it's flip or whatever. Okay, I guess I'm doing this, right? What if you don't like that? Like,
Yeah.
so I did all this stuff, long-term, short-term rentals, flips, Airbnb, all this stuff. 5 years ago, 2018, I was really unhappy because, I'd had close to 1,000 tenants, 240 units on the rental side. On the project side, the flips, the condo conversions, the construction, I was always my own on-site supervisor, and I got bored. So I really didn't like being a landlord. I never liked that entire journey. And so I've sold all my rentals now. I don't have any rentals.
Hmm.
But I think part of it is, who are you? What is your strengths and weaknesses? What's your personality? What do you like and don't like? And so you should match your personality to your strategy. So I think as I was kind of going on to the next thing, it was because subconsciously I really didn't like it, right? Like I really didn't like dealing with nasty. That's the other part about flips and most of the other strategies. If you think about it, for the last 40 years, we've been taught just the values in the building. You
Mm,
know, we get value by adding value, or we get rich by adding value to the building. Everything's in the building. We never think about land. We never think about the value. But as our housing inventory ages,
mhm,
less and less the values in the house and more in the land. So, you know, I think I was searching for something that matched my personality more. And why I come to a development, why I come to new construction is because you get to deal with new. You know, you're not dealing with that 1910 piece of crap. And I've fixed up lots of that. You know, it's just nasty. So you just get tired of disgusting and gross houses after all.
mhm,
So you come back to new, you get to be creative, which is a big part of my why. Like I love to design and be
mhm.
creative. So I love to work with the architects or the civil engineers, you know, land development when it rains. Where's the water going to go? It's kind of nerdy, but I like that bit. And so it's kind of figuring out what I liked and what I did like and eventually coming back to that. So I like to be in and out quick. I never liked that, you know, let's buy a apartment. You know, you and I are going to be JV partners. You're the money guy. I'm the real estate expert. We're going to have this apartment. It's going to, you know, we need 10 years, 8 to 10 years for the appreciation to go up or
Mm.
to the monthly pay down to build up. So, you know, there's an exit there. I barely know you. I don't really want to be in bed with you for 10 years. I like in and out quick, which is what a lot of development strategies can work to. So, you know, it's figuring out who you are
Mhm.
and kind of what part of lots of ways to make money in real estate. So actually, let's have fun and make it match who we are while we're doing it.
That's an interesting point. I think a lot of folks skip over when they're kind of having this debate about, what strategy is the best. We spend all our time staring at a spreadsheet and we go, oh, economically, what strategy is the best? It's like, well, you nailed it right away. Which one is the best for you?
Yeah.
Because there's a million different ways for us to sort of skin this cat. How do you want to do it?
Yeah.
And I find that we find that with a lot of our clients when they're making transitions in helping them understand who are you, where are you at in your life, and what do you want to do. Rarely they spent the time even to think about that.
Yeah.
It's been fascinating.
So it's again, and it's, you know, I'm a guru now too, but you know, all the gurus, we got books to sell. Come on, hurry up, make decisions. The flips, the rentals, come on, I got stuff to go. And so there's a lot of pressure. And no, just step back a little bit, say no, because there's good and bad things to everything, and we don't necessarily see that on the TV shows. You know, that flip makes money every time, and the rental makes money every time, and there's nothing bad. It's all Pollyanna. No,
No.
you know, the bad side about rentals is you got tenants, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places where the government, the Landlord Tenant Act or rent controls is just not a great situation.
Mhm.
Like I said, we're dealing with old all the time, so that's not great. The flips, lots of pressure, like I said, you're fixing the old. So make sure you understand both the positive and the negatives of all the strategies kind of before you dive in and go hard.
And understand yourself. I think you pointed out a good point there, your strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
and where they can highlight those in each one of these areas is really important. Know thyself is an overused acronym, but it's right, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I want, you know, a W-2 employee, I'm quite happy with my job, love my family. I just want to, you know, I want real estate to be a long-term retirement thing, get rich slow. Perfect.
Yeah.
Going to delegate most of the management. Perfect. Nope, I want something quick, right? Okay, so typically that's flips. Okay, well, what are the downside of flips? Okay, now that's more hands-on. Can I do that, right? So it's figuring out, like I said, what do I want out of it, and what's the strategy, the strengths and weaknesses. So, and a lot of these problems can be eliminated with kind of some of the development strategies that we do.
We're gonna invent the real estate personality test. That's
Yeah,
probably out there already.
I've done them actually. Part of what I do is there's some spreadsheets that ask you these kind of questions. What are you good at?
Perfect. There it is. Let's talk about development a little bit, or a lot of it, frankly. Here's what I've struggled with, and I want you to help me. So we get offered to invest in development deals passively rather often. Every time I try to do some due diligence in that area, I get very lost quickly. And I get lost around how much does this cost? How long is it going to take? How do I believe someone that's telling me it's going to cost this much and take this long? I don't know how to believe that. how do I even think about doing diligence on that? And then as a corollary, how do you sort of think about that development cost and timing? How did you get your sense of what that should and shouldn't be, and how do you sort of think about that?
No, great question. So the way I look at it is, I think if you talk to most people and you just say like land development, for example, they kind of automatically think big companies on the outskirts of town buying 400 land or 400 acres of dirt, and over the next 10 years, we're going to put a couple thousand tract homes. We can bring that down to a smaller investor size just with one vacant lot or one old house. And so it doesn't have to be a 5-year phased project. We can break that down. The second part of that is there's kind of 3 steps to development. There's kind of the paperwork, entitlement, permitting, kind of where we're just getting the right to do what we want to do. There's land prep, where we're potentially putting utilities in the ground or building a road if we're doing a subdivision on that one city lot. Maybe it's tearing the old house down, whatever we have to do to kind of get the land ready. And then there's the building part, building the new house or the fourplex, or maybe like a lot big development. We can maybe 10 houses, whatever. So there's those 3 steps. So the other assumption most people have is that we have to do the whole thing. We're used to renovations. You can't half finish a flip and expect to sell and make any profits. So we've got to finish the whole thing. You can't half finish a reno in a rental and expect a tenant to live there. We got to finish the whole thing. In this world, you don't. You can just kind of, which part of those. So there's strategies where you can kind of get in and out, just change zoning and density. You've increased the value of the land. Now you can sell that to another investor or a builder. You can potentially, so let's say there's an old house, 1910 tear down on a 50-foot lot, and we get the right to build a fourplex there. We haven't done any work on site. It's paperwork only. That has value. We can potentially get our architect to design that fourplex, get the building permit. Okay, well, now we've got a shovel-ready package that we can sell to an investor or a builder. Maybe we knock that house down, split the lot in 2, put utilities on both sides, and now we've got 2 service lots. Maybe we sell that to a builder, or we sell it to 2 young couples that want to build their own houses in that area, right? Or we knock it down and build the fourplex ourselves. We can do land assembly. Land assembly doesn't have to be 20 acres and 20 acres on the outskirts of town. It can be old lot versus old lot. So I go knock on the neighbor's door. Now I got 100 feet of frontage. What can I do with that? I can do lot severance. I can split that up, or I can get the paperwork in place for a little apartment building or some townhouses. So there's all these different strategies that you can focus on and key in again, what's your personality and what do you want to do? So part of it is understanding that we don't have to do the whole thing. There's lots of entry points and exit points. Here's where you might want to come in. We're going to add this value, and then we're going to sell it to the next person down the line. And so again, you get to match what you like and what you don't like. So when you're coming back to your question, how do I know how long it's taking? It's kind of getting that base knowledge of how long it takes to do everything. Okay, so maybe I want to do the building part. I really like the construction part. So I'm going to look for land that's already been permitted and entitled and has the proper size of water pipe in the ground. And I'm just going to build the fourplex or the 10plex or whatever, because that's the part that I like. And now I'm in and out quick. It's not a multi-year thing. It's not a 10-year like a multi-family. It's maybe 10 months or 8 months, depending on what I'm building. In and out quick. I can see that better as the way to potentially invest, again, matching who you are and what you're looking for.
So you're blowing my mind open already. I'm like, oh man, there's steps to this. Okay, all right. So let's reset here. Okay. So which one of those steps do you find yourself focusing on now as opposed to maybe when you started?
So I've done all of it, and so I've done subdivisions, and I've built close to 50 houses and small multifamilies. I like the dirt. I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up on a farm. I like dirt, but I like the middle part. I just did a money raise to buy some land in Houston, and looking to get 20 or 30 acres of land and actually subdivide that, strip and grade the land, put the utility pipes in, build the internal road, sever it into smaller lots, and then sell those lots to builders. So let them worry about the price of wood and getting the trades to build the house and all that. So I like that middle bit. Other people I talk to, other students I have, they're really taking advantage of that entitlement. Like, I just want, depends where you are around the country, how long it takes to get permits for this kind of stuff, but it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. So let's not work in the 2-year place. Let's get closer in the 4 or 5 month
Please.
place.
Yeah.
But I can just change zoning or density or get a change of usage, or I can get a relaxation on height. So I can build a little higher, or I can build a little closer, instead of the setbacks that you're limited to on the side of the property, maybe I get a relaxation and I can, in some way, I'm increasing the value of the land. And like I said, mostly we're taught the values in the building. So we have to learn what is highest and best use. How do we increase the value of land if that's where we're at? How do we get entitlement? These kind of things. So again, each of these different strategies can be put into use, and we can use all of them to decrease the amount of time it takes by just focusing on kind of one little niche that we're going to go into.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is fascinating.
That thing you said about that you're blowing my mind, that's the most common comment I get when I talk to people. Oh my God, I didn't even think this was possible. Yeah, this is possible. It's very doable.
I've seen some of it in pieces. We have some investment offerings we've gotten comfortable with. That is the front end, sort of the front end of the equation that you're talking about. So we've seen some of that. Maybe it's more of a classification thing for me. I never really thought of that as part of the development process, but it certainly is, isn't it? It's a huge part of the development process, is doing all the work. When I think development, I think about building buildings.
Yes.
Right? But no, there's so much that needs to happen before that, isn't there?
And the other thing too is the other thing we get stuck in is everybody wants to do big. If I'm doing land development, I got to do 100 acres. If I'm going to build something, it's going to be a 10-story tower. Well, what about just knocking down that 110-year-old piece of crap and building a fourplex or a duplex? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Quick. Like, why do we got to, invent the Taj Mahal every time? Well, we can bring it down to our size, to regular investor size, and we don't have to do all that, 5-year phase developments we're going to do.
And I find this very intriguing from the aspect that you said about, the multifamily or some of the more of a buy and hold type where we have to wait for appreciation. And then I hear a lot of, and this makes me nervous as an investment person, is, oh, we're never going to sell. You sure? Not sure. I feel like there's an obsolescence to some of the real estate at some point. And so the idea of never selling doesn't jive with my brain. And so I think some of what you're talking about is that same sort of mindset of that eventually that thing that you're holding on to is going to become a 100-year-old piece of crap that's going to be very hard to maintain and better off knocking down. There's a real obsolescence here, right? We have to be conscious of those things.
I'm going to give you a couple of facts here. So the average lifespan of a wooden structure in North America is 70 years, 70. Brick is 90. So that puts us in 1954 and 1934. So why are we, I'm not talking about the stuff that's historically or architecturally valuable, but that's a very small percentage. Most old crap is just old crap. So why are we still fixing it up? Why are we doing all the burrs and the flips on those? 1930, 1940. Like, why? Like, it just doesn't make sense. They're small, 500-600 square feet. Single, if they haven't been renovated at all, single pane glass. 100 years ago, they put, insulation was sawdust and newspaper clippings. Well, that's all fallen to the bottom of the cavity. So there's no energy efficiency. There's asbestos in there somewhere. Probably aluminum wiring, which you can't even get insurance for hardly now. Like, so just why? And they're small, right? And so 50-foot lot, tiny piece of crap. My pet peeve is driving around and seeing a 1910 building that's 500 square feet that's just been fully redone. New shingles, brand new window. Like, just why? Just tear it down and start new. Yeah. And the great thing about that too is, again, we're all taught the values in the building. Everybody's taking courses and watching podcasts. We're all going for the same property. Like, the massive competition now to find anything.
Yeah.
Well, what if you come across a vacant lot? Yeah. Most of us have no idea what to do with that. I need a building. What do I do? It's blowing my mind. I don't know what to do. It's a vacant lot. So you drive by. Oh, and the thing about the building too is if it's too old and too nasty, we don't want it either. Let's face it. Most of us just want a building that's a little bit beat up, that we can do paint and new flooring, a little bit, light and plumbing fixtures, just kind of lipstick and rouge, right? If it's just nasty, well, I don't know what to do with that either. And you drive by, right? Yeah. Well, here's a secret. If you knock down an old house, it's a vacant lot. So once you kind of learn what to do with a vacant lot, entitlement strategies, putting pipe in the ground, splitting the lot, building a fourplex. Now you've got all this stuff that you're not competing with everybody else in the real estate investment world. So it really makes life a lot easier. Like it's just eliminate almost all your competition.
It's a knowledge gap to start
Well,
with.
you,
It's
you said
scary.
leading off, you've never had a development guy on the show.
No. Yeah. And we're
But we never
scared.
think,
No,
I need
I
a
drive by the vacant lot too. Um,
I need a building. What do I do?
no, we look at. I see the big. Here's what I'm doing, and this is interesting. So I was just in Chicago this weekend on an architectural book tour around Chicago. Right, I saw the vacant lots, but I wouldn't know what to do to even start with
Yeah.
it. Right, but I saw it. Right, I didn't ignore it, but where do we start? And I think that may be what is throwing some people off. Where paint and lipstick, I get it. That's easy. What still need to learn that, but relatively, I can see the end finish line. Here's a little bit more. There's more to learn
Yeah.
and more to do. You're breaking this up into parts. Maybe is that what? Do you think that's what's scaring people when they sort of
Yes.
look at that vacant lot?
Well, again, it's I don't know anything about it. I've been watching this for 40 years. All we've ever been taught is fix up a building, right? That's been the bread and butter of this industry for 40 years. Take a single family home, fix it up enough to sell it, fix it up enough to keep it as a rental. That's all we've done. 10 years ago, rent to own kind of came into vogue, and then it's out. 5, 6 years ago, we do an Airbnb, but we still need a building, right? And so we've never been taught what to do. So people, okay, I guess I'm going to buy that 1920 because can't find anything else. There's just so much competition with other investors. I guess I'm going to buy that 1920 building and fix it up. I don't really want to, but I guess I'm going to do it. Knock it down. I used to be fix it up guy. Now I'm knock it down guy. So everything older than 1950 in my world should get knocked down. I was talking to somebody the other day, that 1880 building in Philadelphia, and it's kicking their butt. Like they're trying to do a rehab on this thing, and just well, why? Oh, yeah. After talking to you, I never thought of it before, but yeah. So it's this knowledge. You need to learn some new stuff, but it's not hard. Your team's doing most of the work. I think a lot of us are. I think we've all had. If you've heard of horror stories about development, it's because you probably were in the wrong community or the wrong city. There's places that are anti-development. They just don't want us. Other places, no, it's a housing crisis. We need places where there's movements on all over the country to make it easier, lessen the time it takes to do this stuff, make it easier, because there's a need, right? And so we're almost always in every community, they need income for the lower or housing for the lower income crowd, housing for seniors, housing for new immigrants. And that's not only just foreign immigration coming into the country, but also there's unprecedented movement around the country where we're moving from the Californias and the New Yorks and the Chicagos down to the Texases and the Floridas and the North Carolinas. So now, that's part of there's a plus and a minus to every strategy, as I said. Kind of the downside of development is there's a little bit more upfront work. You got to figure out, okay, what is highest and best use? You got to learn some stuff. We got to make sure we're in the right location, because we're adding value. We're adding units, right? In the typical flip and rental world, I'm buying an old house and I'm fixing it up. So it's still 1-to-1. If I did do construction, I knock down an old house and build a new one. Still 1-for-1. Here we're taking 20 acres and creating 50 lots, or we're knocking down that one house and we're building 4 new ones or six units. So we have to be in place where the business scenario makes sense, where yes, they need new units. So that's the downside, is we need to spend a little bit more time up front. After that, we're kind of think like investors. Let's find the areas. Let's put the deal together, but after that, you hand it off to your team, your architect, your civil engineer. They're going to do the back and forth with the city, right? If we're just doing the strategies where that's the end goal, the entitlement or whatever, perfect. We sell that, make a profit. If we're actually going to do work on site, we're going to hire a builder, we're going to hire a general contractor, project manager. So we're not physically doing that. So there's not as hard as we thought it was, but there's also great return on time, because typically in a flip or rental, your work starts when you get the keys. Here, your team's doing most of the work, and you're just kind of overseeing. So yet another couple of real bonuses for getting into development.
You bring up 2 really interesting things that I want to talk about. One, and you alluded to it a little bit, was where to focus on these efforts. places that need, let's say we're looking at, and I assume the development we're mostly talking about is multifamily or housing. We're looking for that. What are the markers you're looking for markets or areas where you want to focus?
Well, again, it's what do you want? Let's say we just want to build, right? So I was talking to a builder in Florida the other day, and to buy the vacant lot, all the city fees and permits, blueprints, physically build the house, $300,000 all in. That's your cost. You can typically get 25% down, 75% construction draw on that. So you need $75,000 cash to do that. They sell for 400 grand. So there's 100 grand profit in there, in and out 10 months to knock down a house and just build one new house. You can build duplexes and all that too. So that cost didn't include, are you going to split the profit with the builder, or cost plus whatever? So let's say there's 50 to 60 grand profit out of 75 grand in 10 months. Like that's pretty cool. That excites me a lot more than let's own this apartment building for 10 years. So there's places where they need it, and the micro strategy that makes sense is let's build. But let's say you're in one of those places like a Chicago where the turnaround, the permitting isn't as quick, but maybe that's the value add too. Maybe you can turn the negative into a positive. If it only takes me a couple of months to get a permit, then builders can do that too. You're not adding value to the builder's life because they can just buy the land and have their team work on it at the same time. If it's going to take a year, 14 months to get a permit to change zoning or whatever, most builders just want to build. Like that's what they get. Yeah. So now there's a potential opportunity for us if we can control. We don't have to buy the property. There's ways to control it. We go through the permitting and all that, and then now 14 months later, now I have an asset that's got permitting or potentially all the entitlement, but potentially even shovel-ready package. Okay, now that's something that has value to a builder because they didn't have to do all that. And so there's a lift there. So basically, there's better places than others to do this, but there's still always ways to turn negatives into positives, even in the places that are a little anti-development and whatever.
And that's an interesting thing. I don't think that, I'll speak for myself. So it's something that I missed is the work that you can do along the spectrum of development, handing that off to the next person who wants to do the next portion of this is a value creation that you can profit from. It's something that I was missing. To me, in my mind, was vacant lot, someone comes in there and develops it, they take the economics in doing that. That's not the case. You've described 4 steps, maybe 5 here, where different parties could have economics throughout the course of this entire development.
Yes. That
was missing for me. Is that missing for most folks when they come to this space too?
Everybody.
Okay, good. So I don't feel too stupid. Great.
Oh, we all just think, like I said, it's just for the big boys on the outskirts of town. And that vacant lot, it's been vacant for 20 years for a reason. I don't know why. I'm just not going to worry about it. No, it's been vacant because nobody knows what to do with it. But if you learn, so real quick, so I see something new. What's the current zoning? What's the potential zoning if I apply for zoning change? Our usage or the things we talked about? How realistic is that? So I guess what's highest and best use is what you're always trying to figure out. What can I put on that vacant lot? Okay. And so then I got Darcyisms. One is get in and out quick. The other one is out with the old, in with the new. So physically, what's there that I have to get rid of? Maybe it's an old house, maybe it's a vacant lot, but maybe it's an old house, maybe there's a rickety old fence, maybe there's a asphalt driveway, there's some trees, whatever. What do I have to take off? In with the new is what do I have to do? Usually utilities, maybe retaining wall, whatever, to get ready to build something new. So there's a house there now. It's a 1910 house. So, the water line coming in is this big. I'm going to put a new 10-plex there. Okay, I need a little bit of water line. Okay, so that's in with the new. But again, your team's doing that, right? Your civil engineers figuring out diameters of all this stuff. So it's not anywhere near as hard as you think. You don't need construction experience because I said your team's doing all the on-site stuff. Let's pull back. Let's think like investors and just find the properties, find the opportunities, make sure we're working in the right places, put the money together, and then hand it off to your team, right?
Let's talk about this team for a minute. How do you think about structuring the team? Is this team folks that you have hired internally? Are they on your payroll? Are they people that you hire? If they're people that you hire, how do you sort of think about selecting those folks? how do you build those relationships to have a great team to execute this work?
So I think it goes back to what you want. Like if you just W-2 employee, just want something more hands off, then you're going to hire everybody, just consultants. Like, so there's new players. Your new players, architect, surveyor, civil engineer. So, they're not on my payroll. It's all contracted work. Project manager, builder. We're just going to hire that. Let me kind of do it this way.
Yeah.
So if I'm just going to do the entitlement, I need a lawyer, I need a civil engineer, and I need a surveyor. Perfect. In and out in a few months. Perfect. Put to buy some land, whether it's 5-10 acres or whether it's that old house on a vacant lot, it's or on a small lot, it's put pipe in the ground and all that. I probably 10 to 12 material suppliers, contractors, that kind of thing. To build a house takes 50 material suppliers, contractors, these kind of people, right? Mm-hmm. So a couple of things. As you go through, there's more and more people with their hand out, and they're going to get paid. So, and then you also increase kind of the risk of time, right? So what do you want to do? So that's what I'm saying. Don't kind of do all three. If you're going to build, then focus on finding the land in this condition. And now we're just going to build. So again, in and out quick. Make sure, the other thing I say is don't paddle upstream, which means what does the community want, right? What does the city want? Maybe the city, they're very anti-development. Well, okay, let's go somewhere else. But in this area, we're underserved for commercial, or we're underserved for, I was looking at one community in one city, and then basically they'd put a needs report together, and good cities will put needs reports. We need more housing for seniors, for example. And basically what it was is they said, we've got a bunch of bungalows in our city, but they're all 1950s and older, so they're unsafe. And then our apartment inventory is all 3-story, so they're walk-ups. Well, that's no good for seniors either, right? So in other words, we'd be very supportive if someone were to come to us with a plan to build a 6-story apartment building with elevators to help us with the senior situation. So again, why are we fighting upstream? Why are we square peg round hole kind of scenario? And that's part of the problem with development is we kind of, as developers, we kind of, damn it, I want to build that 24-unit apartment building and I don't care. And they just tell you no, right? So where's it going to be easier? Where are we going to get the yeses and speed things up? So that's part of the learning curve too. Let's figure out where to be.
It's interesting. Yeah, I have some suggestions for some needs reports around my area here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I have some suggestions, so maybe I'll pick up a phone to your local representatives, and maybe ask some of those questions of why we don't have certain things that we sort of need. I'll give you an example. I mean, here in Wisconsin, the industrial occupancy rate is almost 100%. So we desperately need more industrial buildings here. So development of that sounds like a good marker or a statistical starting point to say, maybe some industrial development might be nice here.
And so a key part of your team is going to be a realtor. And I'm not going to trash realtors here, but to be honest, 95% of them in my experience are qualified just to help you buy your personal residence or help you sell your personal residence. Most realtors don't get into investing in this. If they do, they understand flips and rentals. Because maybe they got a couple of rentals. So a smaller percentage of realtors get this world. So if you can find one of those in your area that kind of gets it, that's a big help, because now they can see, okay, let's look for vacant lots, or let's look for that 1910 piece of crap that nobody else is looking at, that's been on the market for 70, 80 days because your normal flippers don't want it, right? So now let's start to look differently, think differently. We're looking specifically in certain older neighborhoods. The neighborhoods where all the houses are 1950s and earlier. What can we do here? Is there precedent? Is there somebody else? If you drive into that neighborhood, are you seeing some new constructed infills like duplexes, fourplexes, or is it still just everything's the same? So that tells me maybe the NIMBY crowd, the not in my backyard crowd, is pretty strong in that neighborhood. Well, let's go somewhere else where there's precedent, where new stuff's getting done, and you can see, okay, this is where the opportunity is. So again, a different way to think of stuff.
That sounds like a very viable thing, a sort of a follow along type strategy where you do see, where I guess you could look at that and see that as a deterrent. You're like, oh, darn, like somebody's already here doing development. You're looking at maybe the other way and saying, oh, actually, here's a community that's variable for this, I might be able to do more development in this particular area. You would more look at it that way, correct?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
typically we're taught driving for dollars.
Hmm.
So we're driving along, we're looking for that old house with this 3 foot high grass and the fence is knocking over because we're going to fix that one up. I'm looking more in general, is this a 1950s and earlier community?
Mm-hmm.
Is there stuff is it, is it Richie Richville? You're not going to go into a really nice part of town, knock it down, the old mansion and build a 10-plex. They're not going to let you, right? So is it more the right, kind of middle class neighborhood where we can do that? And then again, is there new stuff going along, right? So another quick tip too here, there's a new duplex being built, construction fence in front, the chain link fence, the trades post their signs. Here's the company, the demolition company that knocked down that old house. Now I know someone who knocks down a house. Who's the architect? Who's the engineer? Because that'll be part of the city advertising package. If there's a problem, phone this number. Okay, well, now I know an architect that specializes in new duplexes, right? These kind of things. Who's the builder? You're looking for builders that are kind of our size. You don't want those national chains. You want the builder where they maybe do 10 or 15 a year, and the owners of the building companies either on site or they got 2 or 3 jobs. He'll be on site sometime today. Mm-hmm. Let's go talk to him directly. What can we do together? Do you invest or work with investors? How do we, how to get into that? So like I said, I was talking to that builder in Florida this last week.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you learn, right? So it's fun. Like it's just new and creative and exciting. It's way better than fixing up old crap.
And I tell you what, and you said it, like I can lose count on how many needs reports that I'd want just in my little locality where we need new. It's destined. And you see it, right? We desperately need it.
I think
yeah. So go ahead.
I think it's a mistake to just assume that everybody that wants a new house wants to live in the suburbs. Let's stop the urban sprawl. Let's come back. Let's revitalize those 1940s communities by tearing it down, but adding inventory. That's not just typically we've just done one for one. Let's add inventory. Even on the rental side. Let's say you still want rentals. Perfect. It's hard in huge parts of the country now to cash flow a single family. So we're all going to multifamily. We're taking the courses. This is the solution. The dirty secret is there's nothing to buy when you get out.
Yeah.
If people own a multifamily, the cash flows are not selling it, right? So the ones that come in the market is where dad died and it's a 1950s piece of crap and the kids don't want it. Okay, so now it needs a ton of love, right? So again, let's start to get back to thinking about redeveloping these communities, and let's come back and come back with new. So it's exciting. I just like it.
It is exciting, and it's happening for those watching on YouTube. Behind me is an outline of the downtown Milwaukee. It's happening here. As someone who's lived here our entire lives, the traffic pattern has completely changed here. In the morning, people leave the city and go to work in the suburbs. Those that go to work. That's a complete shift. It used to be people lived in the suburbs and came to the city to work. Not what's happening anymore. So it's noticeable here, and there's so much more that can happen. It is really exciting. It's a revitalization of it for us, Midwest America. Really, it's a revitalization of that.
Yeah, and we just assume, okay, we drive by and we see the new 10-plex or the 20-plex being built. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I can't do that. That costs too much. I can't. And it's just so foreign to what I've been taught. Yeah. Let me just look for that 1930s thing that I can fix out. Switch the mindset, come back and say, no, I can be part of that. I can start, I can get into this with just maybe doing some entitlement stuff, build up a little bit of a war chest, learn, okay, start to build your team. Okay, now, no, let's knock down a house and actually build a 4-plex. Maybe I want to keep that in my rental portfolio. Lots of benefits to having new. As a rental, better class of tenant. They qualify they qualify easier. They're willing to pay more for new, brand new building, less repairs and maintenance. All that together means it's easier to manage. You're not managing that. You're not fixing up a Class C building that's still going to need repairs all the time. You got Class C tenants. You got nicer tenants. Now we've got a lifespan of 80 or 100 years. Easier to insure, easier to get mortgages for. It's just the whole thing is better, right? And so now you've got an opportunity that, let's be honest, most of us are sucked into rentals, and we're thinking the property management company is going to take care of everything. And not. So we're still taking a lot of our time to take care of our rentals. It is easier with new because there's just less stuff to break and you get better tenants. So it is more of a hands-off thing. So lots of benefits for new, but different exit strategies too, right? So maybe I knock down that house and build a fourplex. Maybe I keep it. Perfect.
Yeah.
As a rental. Maybe I sell it as a building to another investor because I said there's lots of people looking for multifamily. Maybe I condominiumize them. I split it up into 4 separate and sell them separately, right? Maybe I do Airbnb specifically or whatever. Maybe maybe you build one and keep it for that long-term rental or long-term retirement. Maybe you sell the next. Sell one, keep one, sell one, keep one. You get the best of both worlds. And again, your team's doing a lot of that work. So it is possible for kind of W-2 or type employees or consultants or doctors. People don't have a lot of time. This is a really valid strategy as well.
Yeah, I don't think the average person would think that you could turn this into a semi sort of passive-esque type strategy. Most people probably would not think that. I caution folks when they think and you're onto it, right? Buying the Class C and fixing it up and having a property management company. That's a pipe dream that's passive. Absolute pipe dream. It's just not, in my experience. I haven't seen it. So why not take that effort and put it here?
Exactly. And like the Florida example, in and out in 10 months, right? So maybe you keep that house, maybe you sell it. But it's a quick in and out, brand new, everything's new. So give this a thought.
Here's what I'm going to do. We need a version 2 of this episode. We need to dive deeper. I'm going to go educate myself first, right? And I'm going to come back with some really like poignant questions for you about this development because I think we share this. I get bored easily, but I get bored easily because I'm very curious about some of these other strategies. So now I'm curious, and that's dangerous for all of us. Once I get, as my family knows, once I get curious, they're like, why do you have 16 books on real estate development and all stacked on each other? It's like, well, I don't know. I got bored and I'm curious again. Here's what happened. So I'm going to come back to you with some more questions. We're going to do a version 2.
Love it.
But where can people find you? I want to point people in the right direction so they can start to educate themselves and learn more.
Yeah. So I have a course. It's an online course, really, really good, legitimately. So just Google or go to my website, darcymarler.com. Lowercase, no spaces. And you can actually go to YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and go Darcy Marler channel. Got like 130 videos over the last couple of years that deal just with this. No flips and rentals, just new construction. So it's kind of unique in this space. There's not a lot of people teaching this. But I've got a course. If you're interested, then DM me or whatever. We'll set up a call.
I'm going to put links to both of those in show notes so people can follow those. But Darcy, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time. This has been great.
And for listeners, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.